So this morning I'm visiting Deception Island in Antarctica, as you do. And this is a site with some really quite surprising military connections, all a little bit loose, but really quite interesting connections to some very famous people. This is the site of the only industry that's ever been set up in Antarctica. It's not a particularly pleasant industry, it's whaling. In the early part of the 20th century, whalers start coming down here using this bay for their whaling ships, their processing ships that haul their catch of whales alongside, cut them up and extract the blubber for oil. And in 1908, the British set up a little sort of station here to monitor this whaling activity so they can tax the whalers because they have claimed this island as part of Great Britain's territory. In 1912, an actual processing facility on shore is established. The whales are hauled out, cut up, their skin removed so that the blubber can be extracted. And that's cooked in these great pressure tanks, so it's reduced to oil, and that oil is then put into the big storage tanks ready to be exported. Now, the whaling industry dies in the late 1920s, early 1930s, as whaling moves offshore into pelagic whaling. All of the operators start doing it from factory ships out in open waters, so they don't have to pay taxes. And so this space gets abandoned. But in 1930s, 1934 to 1937, the British Graham Land expedition comes down to Antarctica. And in 1935, they visit Deception Island. Now, this place has long been abandoned, but they've come here actually to pilfer timber from the whaling station so they can use it to build an expedition hut further south in Marguerite Bay. And these huts that have first been built as accommodation for the whalers were used. They extracted all the timber they needed, piled it onto their ship, the Penola, and sailed further south. The captain of the Penola is in fact a Royal Navy officer by the name of Robert Ryder, and he's accompanied by his brother who's serving as his first mate, Lyle. Lyle goes on to have a career in the Second World War, tragically short-lived. He is a major in charge of a company. During the retreat to Dunkirk, he is surrounded by the SS, and after holding out briefly, he and about 97 men surrender, but are then summarily executed by the SS. His brother, Robert, goes on to have a longer career. He rises through the ranks of the Royal Navy. He is the commander of Operation Chariot, the San Nazaire raid, that mission to shove a destroyer into a dry dock and blow it up, an action for which he is awarded the Victoria Cross. He also goes on to have a major role in the planning and the execution of the Dieppe raid and D-Day, where he serves as one of the command officers on Juno Beach. He even becomes an MP after the war, but fascinatingly, after the war, after all of these fantastic aspects of his life, he says one of the achievements that he is most proud of is learning to sail that ship Penola around Antarctica. Now, during the Second World War, the British also established bases in Antarctica. Operation Tabarin in 1944 establishes Base A at Port Lockroy, south of here, and Base B here at Deception Island. And here at Base B, they utilise the existing whalers' huts to set up their base and operate from here for the next 2 years. Now, at the end of the Second World War, this military operation passes to civilian control. It becomes the Falkland Island Dependency Surveys. And in 1946, one of the relief ships comes to start relieving the military personnel that are based at Port Lockroy, Base A, and here at Deception Island, Base B. Now, on one of those very first ships are 3 members of the SAS, none other than Blair Paddy Mayne, and he's accompanied by Mike Sadler, both of whom are part of the sort of founding cohort of the SAS when they operate in North Africa, and also by John Tonkin, who joins the SAS when they serve in Italy, another quite famous figure in its history. Paddy Mayne eventually has to return home as a result of illness, but Tonkin and Sadler both join the Falkland Island Dependency Survey, and they head further south towards Marguerite Bay, where the Penola had gone 10 years previously, and they overwinter down here. Falkland Island Dependency Survey remains at this site for the next 20 years, well into the 1960s. This becomes quite a major British base. They build new huts like Hunting Lodge, which is used for aerial surveys. They even build an aircraft hangar for the aircraft that are flying in and out from the southern continent of America or further into Antarctica. So this becomes quite an active station. But Deception Island is a volcano, and it's an active volcano. And in 1967, 1969, there are a number of eruptions and tectonic movement that start to damage the buildings. A mudslide encases the cemetery that had been established here at the dawn of the 20th century, and it becomes unsafe to remain here. And so this base is abandoned in 1969. And what we're left with is the legacy of different periods of construction, the remains of the whaling station, the tanks, the pressure cookers, the accommodation, and the huts of the Falkland Island Dependency Survey. It's an incredible place with some very surprising military links.